Teams of Agile Teams. In this show, we're going to share stories about our first arts and our worst arts and the lessons we learnt from them. Nico and Ali are going to enthuse about the importance of organising around value and the challenges of good art design. And Stefan's going to remind us that getting it right is all about data and a lot of learning. So just before we throw over to some sneak peeks at their stories, let's talk a little bit about the dimension, right? So it's the competency, of course, is team and technical agility. We opened it up a few weeks back. We took a sidetrack into the continuous learning culture. We're back here, which has 3 dimensions being agile teams, teams of agile teams, and built-in quality. And the team of agile teams really is the foundation of SAFe. It's better known as the Agile Release Train, or these days more commonly called the ART. And the concept is it's organised around one or more value streams and arts-aligned teams to a common business and technology mission. They exist to deliver valuable solutions to their customers, which requires a broad spectrum of skills. So there are 5 key responsibilities, like there are for most of the constructs in SAFe. We've got connecting with the customer, planning the work, delivering value, getting feedback, and improving relentlessly. And if you've been following the last few weeks, we've obviously spoken an awful lot about the idea of improving relentlessly. So the catch cry is arts plan together, commit together, execute together, and improve together. But without further ado, let's throw the ball over to Nico to give us a sneak peek into some of the stories that he's going to share with us.
Yeah, it's how important it is to organize around values. So we heard from Mark, one piece of the responsibility wheel is delivering value. For that, you must be in a construct of delivering value. It's not only a team of team, it also has a meaning behind of it. It's called art, not fake art, which by the way is a fart, but I don't say so too much about it.
Are we going to get back to
So it's
hooking up now, or what?
no hookup this time. I learned my English today. So yeah, it's really important. It's not just putting teams together and call it an art. It really has a meaning, and principle number 10 shows this meaning. It's for me an important part, next to transparency and alignment, but we will see more about later.
All right, Stefan, what about you? What's your highlight and the sneak peek you're giving us?
I already learned from Nico, designing is a process and it's an art to design an art. You can't design farts, right? So designing and this process is what affects me all the time. And I've learned a lot over the last few years, coming from a more mechanical design process to a really creative design process. And what I've learned as well is, and I learned that from Adam Grant, from his books, being confident in what you do, but have enough humility to change if you have the facts. If you have learned something, be humble and change as fast as possible.
Beautiful. And Ali, I'm loving the, is this the beginnings of a beard, or is it I just couldn't shave for a few days?
No, I think I'm trying to look a little bit similar, like our host of the show today. I think I need to adjust I need to have something a little bit lighter. I need to have my glasses on and take off my contact lenses and grow the beard a little bit. I need to keep a little bit of a ponytail. Uh, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Give me a few episodes, and nobody would know who's Mark. No, so today, I'm on the same bandwagon as Stefan and Nico, because I think as part of this dimension, what I absolutely like is the art of creating an art, or at least the art design efforts. It's extremely difficult, and on paper it's easy. The construct and the ideas are simple, but in real life, you don't have the people that have the skills. You don't have certain responsibilities that need to be in place in order to be able to deliver value, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all kind of constraints, and I think the creativity that is involved, or that needs to be involved in working with those constraints and finding out a good design for a team of teams that can really deliver value is just something really special. It takes a lot of time, and in the story that I'm going to share later, I'm going to talk about an art that took us 10 weeks to design. 10 weeks.
Been there. All right, so let's set the scene. So the team of teams, or the art, it's the foundation SAFe is built on. The concept's been around since Dean wrote Scaling Software Agility back in 2007. Great arts, they're amazing things, but it's amazing how often people still struggle to get them to shine. So in the story that follows, we're going to look back on our early experiences, the lessons we learnt the hard way, some of the key tips we've experienced when it comes to art design, and really importantly, how to make yourself redundant as an SPC once they're in motion, and the importance of avoiding feature factories. So the prep question I gave this week, and I was looking forward to seeing the answers to it, was what were your first art and your worst art, and the biggest insight you had on things you should have focused on more in the early days. And you'll notice some very common threads as you listen to the guys, and certainly they would have been there in my story if I'd been in story writing mode. But I figured we'd start with Nico because you're the oldest of the OG here. Your first art was back in 2014. Tell us a little bit more, mate.
Yeah, 10 years ago, yeah, it was the time when SAFe grew up from version 2.5 to version 3. It was my first art was with SAFe 3. There was no SAFe for Teams, was just leading SAFe out and a training called SAFe Scrum XP. And that was somehow the train started with a company, a CEO, a family-owned company, a CEO being also the owner of the company with a lot of cousins and brothers and sisters and so on. That was my first experience. It was a huge one because everybody were on the same side, pushing pushing the train or the company to the right direction. It's one of my stories I can get out, I think, hundreds of examples. Whenever I want to show something, I'll remember this example. And one of the worst, you said the best and the worst. One of the worst was when a colleague of me called me, "Oh, I need a co-trainer for a train start. He's ill. Can you jump in?" Yeah, I jumped in, and nobody knew what the hell we are doing. So the train had to start next week, and the people said, "Oh, SAFe, what SAFe, and why am I here, and why I'm sitting on this table? I don't know these guys." Oh yeah, that's your new team. Nobody told you ever? So no. They just told me I have a 2-day training. So, oh, the trainer is still my colleague, but I started asking new questions like, do the people know what you're doing, or they just kidnapped and put in a room? That was the worst one, and the highlight I changed it because what Stefan said. When I go back to my education as systemic coach, there are several lenses we used how you can see organization. On the days I've started with SAFe, it was the mechanical view. It's a machine, a software operating system you have to put on the organization so that she works, the organization, or it works. And the last years, it changed to being an organism. It's being something people are in. It's something that when you do something, it reacts. It's not something you can put on. And I think that's one of the success factors is realizing that the lens of the organization being an organism, a living system, and that you have actio reactio. So when you do something, you get something back. I think this is one of the biggest insight. It's not just doing rituals, introducing events, is working with the system, is growing people there in their roles, seeing how the system reacts, how they react, and that's also one of the tips how you can rid of the SPCs at the end, the coaches. The system has to learn. It's not something you install and go away. It's something you grow up there.
Yeah,
I changed my story. Sorry.
no, I love the story, and I'm very glad that your Swinglish didn't kick in when you were using the word organism.
Excellent.
Oh.
On a more serious note, I think it's the power and the peril of the train is it's such a repeatable pattern. right? You really can get to the point of going, there's a recipe for getting a good train. But always remembering it's humans, it's not a machine, despite how polished that recipe might be. So let's go over to Ali. Your first and your worst and your biggest insight in learning.
Well, so where Nico had his first art 10 years ago, happy first art anniversary, by the way. I had mine I launched my first train in 2015. That was before I was an SPC. So that was interesting. I became SPC somewhere in the first half of 2016. But I was already an Agile coach and was working with Agile and Scrum and that kind of stuff before that. But I landed in a company, had many Scrum teams. Some of them were doing Scrum and had product, an actual development team, a Scrum master that was actually a Scrum master, had a product owner that was actually managing a backlog. But you also had a lot of teams that were wannabe Agile, Wagile, fake Scrum, from maybe. And it's all of that was happening. But I was very excited. And the whole point there was, the same issues. Dependency management wasn't in place. Everyone was waiting on each other all the time. There was no transparency on progress. There was no synchronization. It was the same typical issues. So we were like, I was together with a colleague back then. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I've seen something somewhere about this safe thing, which is sort of it gives us some tricks about organizing multiple teams together and seeing that as a team, sort of a team of teams, and planning work together. And that's it. I got completely 100% captivated by the PI planning. And that was also all the attention of me went to just hosting and organizing that PI planning, which was the biggest mistake ever. Why? Because we completely over-engineered the PI planning. So we had like a beautiful agenda, good location, endless amount of posters. We had everything prepared on each table. The presentations, it looked beautiful. But we sort of forgot the teams. And as a matter of fact, whenever this was, I think, a couple of weeks before the PI planning, two or so weeks before the PI planning, we went to the department managers and we were like, we think we forgot something. We think that we forgot to at least teach the teams what a PI planning is, what is expected, and what happens after it. So that the whole notion of, the need for synchronization and et cetera, et cetera. But it was very late. It was just 2 weeks before the PI planning, and the line managers and department manager was like, nope, we're not going to do that. It's too expensive to put everyone. It was 150 people trained almost. It's too expensive to put everyone through a training. So yeah, we're not going to do that. So the panic that happened right after that moment, because there was some announcement, and whenever there's an announcement for especially that first PI planning, people are like, all right, we'll see what's going to happen. But whenever the moment approaches until the PI planning, people just start to flip out. They're like, well, we need to plan something. Something is expected from me. So what do I need to do? So we tried to have some kind of sort of a webinar type of approach. Luckily, the PI planning itself went pretty okay, because the last 2 weeks were horrible for the product owners, for the to sort of look at the features, prepare those, and potentially slice them into stories as good as possible. And the PI planning was over-engineered, so that went okay, but that was pretty horrible. So then I would like to hear some more horror stories. Maybe Stefan or maybe you, Mark. You have anything that you could share? Because I just feel the pain now. This is, it's 9 years later. I still feel it.
Stefan, are you going to continue the trend? Like the first trend, we've got this little nice sequence going. We had 2015, 2014, and of course, Stefan, we're over to 2016.
Yeah, I just had a lot of flashbacks, and I'm happy I'm part of this congregation here. And probably we should set up a streaming session, how not to, right? It's probably easier than to say how to. So first out in 2016, Ali, I was lucky. I was trained by Michael Stump in 2015 as an SPC. So I had common training, common knowledge. The only thing I did, and I was lucky, I did it alone. My first art, I did it alone. Never do that. Do it in pairs, do it in a team. I was lucky because I had good people. I had thinking people who covered all my impediments, everything I didn't know, right? So the first art was really a success. And then this oscillating pattern. Hooray, we've done it. It was a success. We got the best feedback from that company, also from the trainings. And then one of the next arts was really my worst art. So what did we do wrong? We didn't listen to the business. We didn't listen to the business owners who told us this is the setup, this is the context. Can we do it with PI planning? And we all said, yeah, sure, it works, right? It's a proven agenda. And we fell back into this mechanical way of preparing as well, Ali. We had an awesome agenda. We had a fabulous location. But at the end, we had a plan who told us, and now the next 10 weeks, let's get busy. And probably later we will come back to this. We deteriorated into a feature factory, right? Just doing what we planned without knowing why we do what we do. So, and I blame me as the head coach, as the SPC. I blame even the whole group not paying attention to signals that came before the PI planning and signals that popped up during PI planning. We were so stuck with the agenda, the mechanical process. We have to finish after 2 days with a set of committed PI objectives. Well, we didn't understand what a set of PI objectives is, right? And we barely understood what the commitment was. The commitment was to a plan, but not to the objectives. And I learned very quickly, it's awful, it hurts, and I didn't do it anymore. So I'm still learning after almost 9 years. So yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls.
Tough. Yeah.
It's interesting for me. There's a common thread there with everybody to go, when you think of your worst art, you're really thinking about the work you did before you got into your PI planning, right? It doesn't tend to be, oh, it was the worst art because of stuff that happened later. It was the worst art because, we forgot that it's an organism, not a machine. We forgot that people are people and they need to go on a journey. Or we didn't pay enough attention to what's really critical before we get in that room for the first PI planning. And far away, Nico.
If I may add, it's not only the beginning. It's some people think your job finished after the PI planning, and you just said, Mark, it's a journey. Ali said also after PI planning is the PI, and some release teams, some external people just leave after the first PI planning. My job is done. The train is rolling. Yeah, but where? Who steers it? What have you thought about it? Yeah, it's more than just. You're right. It's the beginning, but there's also a journey. And I love this sentence, Mark. Thank you.
It's where the learning begins. My first train, I also, like Ali, wasn't an SPC because there was no such thing as an SPC yet. We just read the book. And
You are the actual OG, the actual literal OG. It's not only technical, you're literally the OG.
no, I was on a fellows call last night, and there are definitely more OGs than me. Debbie Ray was telling a little bit of her backstory and some changes in life at the moment. And of course, I've known Debbie for ages, as always, Debbie from Boeing. And
Yep.
she was playing with Dean's thinking from scaling software agility back as early as 2007, 2008. So,
Oh, wow.
but you know, we'd
wow,
been,
that's pre-book.
yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
It was Dean's early work. I think she was one, you know, she looked at Dean's early publishings and went, this is cool, I'm going to play with it. And of course, she played with it on fighter jets just to pick something easy to apply it to. But
But Mark, isn't that the big challenge here? What we covered today in this session, it's not a method, it's not a checklist, it's much more, right?
Yeah.
Getting the bigger picture and then going into this design process and helping people achieve great stuff.
Yeah. So
More magic than science.
look, I think there's a little bit of science. There's a quote that I've always loved, and one of the books I read early in my agile life I've always loved was called Artful Making. And it was a collaboration between a technology professor and a drama professor. And they were looking at the world of agile development and how it might apply in the technology space compared to putting on a theatre production. And they just draw these beautiful parallels between the two. Because of course the notion with a theatre production is the show will go on opening night. And there's an awful lot of creativity and uncertainty along the way there, but when opening night comes, the show will go on. And they have this quote, and I think it's attributed to somebody Chinese, and they say, technique is the dancer's freedom. And I think if I look back across the whole experience, right, I go that the science and some of the structural disciplines, they give you the freedom to focus on the people. But if you haven't got some of the kind of core concepts in place as you go, you get stuck up trying to manage the mechanics instead of trying to look after the people. So let's move on.
Beautiful.
I could tell many stories because we never actually did PI planning for that train, despite the fact I think it was one of the first 2 or 3 big case studies on SAFe, and Dean was forever worried the fact that we actually publicly said SAFe was doing great for us and we weren't using PI planning. But let's move on a little bit, and you guys alluded to this a little bit in your worst train stories. Let's talk about art design. Because if we think about that first PR planning as, you know, opening day when the show goes on, and you've probably done an awful lot of hard work before you get to that opening day, or you're going to regret it. Part of the hard work you've done is to say, well, what does this train look like? And it's a difficult thing to teach, I find. It often feels more like magic than science. And when you think about it, there have been some tricks you've found. And Ali, you mentioned 10 weeks to lock in a design. That feels like a great place to start.
Yes. What I've figured out over time is that whenever we're trying to design an art, we're trying to design a work environment in which people can be comfortable. We have all of the skills required to build whatever we need to build and we need to deliver. And we need to try to aspire where the train is going to be 2, 3, 5 years from now. Which basically means what type of products or services is the train going to develop and deliver 2, 3, or 5 years from now, and you don't know. Things might change, but that means that you also can think about what type of skills and competencies do you need over time, which eventually opens up the discussion about, well, if we then have to design our teams, That's not the people in the teams yet, but just a team with a defined scope, sort of that can own a certain part of the solution. Then what type of competencies do we need in that team over time? And then after that, you could either include line managers, because I've figured out that in some companies, especially the companies that are it's very traditional in nature, that involving line managers early on, that generates buy-in. Not doing that will generate enemies and will break down sort of any form of, let's say, agility or the trying to find a new way of working. Including line managers early on, including technical architects early on, to think about the decoupling of teams so that each team really can own part of a solution. And eventually, if time allows or if the situations allows, you can host a sort of a team formation workshop in which you involve everybody. Not every company is susceptible for that. Not every person is susceptible, likes that kind of stuff, because there are also a lot of people that are like, you know what, I don't care. Just tell me in which team I'll be, and fine, whatever. But so we had a train design which was 180 people in total, 180 people. That's a huge train. So obviously we were thinking about, well, but it's going to make everything difficult, everything, all of the dependency management, maintaining overview, people being able to know each other and talk with each other, system demos. So we tried for 10 weeks with a whole group of people, and that is excluding me because I was a consultant. I'm not going to tell you how your train is going to look like. We tried all kind of sort of dissections of the train. Can we split it this way? Can we split it in another way? Can we split it? But everybody had his own ideas, sort of his own motivation on how to split something. And in any design, in any situation, the two new trains essentially wouldn't have the ability to deliver something independently of the other. So rather than continuing that discussion, we were like, you know what? Let's start with a train of 180 people. I think, no, let me rephrase it. I think it was 160 with 18 teams. That's what it was, 18 teams. But let's start with that giant train and then use data to later on identify which teams are really working a lot with each other and which teams are not. So use data and experience to later define a sort of a split. And that happened 1.5 years after the launch. So after 5 PIs, we had enough data to identify a clear cut amongst teams that were not working with each other anyway.
Yeah, it's for me, I think the most important thing about train design is going, we're going to get it wrong, right? It's going to need to change. But when we start to operate in this way and start to think about flow at the art level, it's going to tell us the early mistakes. And, my favorite metric for train evolution is, do we pull red string off the board every PI? But Nico, you had a couple of ideas for, things that could really help you get a little bit less wrong when you began.
So I would like to say some things that are not in the material, because I think mostly what SAFe is doing is good. You can adapt it thanks to COVID. We realized we can also stretch this finding thing. It's not only a 2-3 day event. You can do it differently. So that's one positive thing about COVID, to realize this value stream finding thing could be done differently. I'm completely with you, Mark. The sense you just said before. It's really an important thing. What I do, because data is important, I go always like weather forecast. The easiest thing to do weather forecast is saying it's the same like the weather today. Mostly you're right. So if today it's raining, you can say tomorrow it will rain too. So when I do art formation or team formation, I take the data from the past and try to find out, where are the red strings, where are the dependencies, where are the handoffs. So I simulate my current version of the team art packaging. I simulate it with the past features to find out, is it now better or not, or is it the same, or what is it? And then maybe look a little bit advanced. What happens with the next features? Do we have more or less overhead? But the important thing is to realize it doesn't care how you cut it. At the end, it's the current state of knowledge you have, and tomorrow you will have better knowledge. And it really saved several times my head against the management, or my neck, or whatever you wring or you cut off in English. It saved me to say them, we can have a look again in 2 PIs in a year. It's just the current knowledge we have now. And in a year we have learned more, not because you're stupid now, because you have more information. And then we can change it. Let's start instead of. So by the way, Swiss people have the tendency just to make it perfect first. So if you read the last
Of
principle
course.
of lean, of course, yeah, thank you. It's hard for me if
You
you are
make
a
it,
more experimental guy.
it's the best watches and mechanics, and it all comes from that very small little country somewhere in the middle of Europe.
Yeah,
It's
because
it's
we
you over
misunderstood.
engineer.
Yeah, we misunderstood the the fifth principle of lean, pursue perfection. We think the plan has to be perfect instead of trying it and doing better by learning and learning. And that's something, at
Ah.
least in my culture around Switzerland, Austria, Germany, where I'm around, it's convinced them it's just the knowledge we have now. We have to start, not to overthink it. And this sentence, it will be wrong anyway. Whatever you do, helped a lot this early days. So. I really take old data, new data, try to simulate something. And I did also things when I remember other coaches thought, so he's stupid. He's not really a coach. What has he done now? He just created teams of developers and teams of requirements engineers. I think he never read the things about cross-functional. He must smoked something this morning. But in this case, where I did this was because it was a greenfield approach, a new product. The developers had no idea how to develop, which techniques to use. Do we use Docker or something else? What do we do? The requirements engineers had no idea about the business. And now making cross-functional teams with nobody knowing what to do, it's really difficult. And having first development teams, testing teams, requirements teams helped them the first half year to get knowledge in their discipline. And then I had some kind of influenced retro where at the end they realized we have now to be cross-functional. And then after, it was 6 months, 7 months around there, they changed something. So start with something that helps you. Take the old data, look what your purpose is for the next months, and start with that and change it. And it's, I think, completely out of the book. And I hope I can keep my tea after that.
All right, so on the way to jumping across to Stefan, because he had another interesting perspective on this. The other hint I'd give you when you're thinking about train design is there's a temptation to think it's names on a spreadsheet and to design your teams from names on a spreadsheet. You've got to have people in the room who know who the people are behind the names. You can't do it from names and job titles or you're going to get a horrible design. But Stefan, you took us customer centric. I loved your thinking. Tell me more.
Yeah, let me pick up the thread you dropped now, and as an introduction to this part of the streaming. To make it magical, you need to know your technique, and we are taught in implementing SAFe that there's a 6-step process that leads us from operational value streams to finding the teams, the arts, the development value streams. So. And I just finished a value stream identification this week over a few sessions. And in the introduction, we say, this is the process. And now we have 3 questions. And before we go into the first session, you will tell us where to answer those 3 questions during the process. So we try to pull out the people from, oh, we have to design teams and we have to put names in an Excel spreadsheet, stuff like that. And we ask the question, okay, first of all, which are the most important customer segments, markets? Second question, where's the biggest pressure for change and innovation? It could be in a unit, it could be in some parts of the operational value stream. And the third question is probably which leads us then to find out who should attend the value stream identification workshop. We ask, who triggers change? Is it the CEO? Is it the department? Is it an existing value stream? And then we say, what type of change is it? Is it minor change? Is it life cycle change? Is it a refactoring? Is it a big leap in innovation? And we also ask then, okay, if you defined who triggers change, what type of change, is there a change priority already in place, or should we first talk about this one? And that leads me to what Ali said. That could take a few weeks to discuss this change priority before you go into a design mode or a design process. And the funny thing is, we went through the 6 steps, OVS, DVS, all the stuff. We did it according to the method. And now and then, some guy raised his hand and said, now we have to talk about customer. Now we have to talk about pain points and pressure. And now we have to talk about, oh, there's a different change here in this OVS, in this part of it. And that creates different ideas, different options. And the interesting thing is, yesterday we found a solution where everyone said, this is probably the solution to 80% of our pain points. And we were not talking about individual hits and names, but about what type of team should we have. And I was really happy. Most of the teams are now in the design like streamlined teams, and not, oh, we have existing complicated subsystem team. We have existing teams. Department lead said, okay, I have to split my teams differently now. And that creates an unwanted restructuring, because line management, as you said, Ali, is now in it. They lead the change, not us as change agents. Not the LACE has to push and say, now we have to change, now we have to put people into the trainings. And they come to the trainings, like Nico said, and they have no clue, why am I in a Safe for Team training? Experienced many times. We ask the people, why are you here? They raise their hand and say, oh, my boss told me to come. And I think those are 3 questions.
I'm paid. I'm paid. I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm paid for it, right? So these 3 questions are customer focus, then the pressure for change, which includes automatically line management, and then also the different, I call them gray instances, right? Some people trigger change and we don't know who did it. And we have to find out who triggers change, what type of change. And then talking about what's this priority, even on a enterprise level. And it helped a lot. And it's probably, like you said, Ali, value stream identification in 2 weeks. My experience, no go. It needs a bit more time. Give the people time and have the involvement. And then you come up with a design that you can test in first PI planning.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so we probably should have done that in the other order, because Stefan is, zoom out before you zoom in. Don't start with your team design. Start with your customers and your market triggers and the operational value streams you're servicing. And then gradually work your way back in and be really clear on the problem you're solving before you start thinking about team design and train design. And then Ali took us down a little bit further, and it was a great example to go, sometimes you have to have a train that breaks the rules because you can't figure out a clean way to break it right now. And then we went deeper into, well, Ali said, well, we'll launch as a big thing and we'll get data and then we'll figure out how to break it. And Nico was like, well, actually, there's probably some stuff you can figure out earlier on in terms of team collaboration patterns that'll help you get going. So, and somewhere along the way through there, we had plenty of buzzwords. If you aren't familiar with team topologies and you are thinking about team and train design, go read the book. Right, there's no bigger secret in terms of stuff that gives you really great toolboxes for this than the ideas in team topologies. Don't settle for reading the 2,000 word article Safe wrote about it. Go to the source.
Get the book. Yes.
Yeah.
And the book has the second part, which Safe somehow ignored. So about collaborations, etc. That's also very valuable. So the first part is also important, but the second part is much more important in my eyes.
And I'm going to take that as a segue, right? Because I think the second part of team topologies that talks about collaboration patterns, I look at a lot in terms of tuning once we're moving. I think about a little bit in the early design, but I really think about it as we start to tune and contextualize beyond the first PI planning. And what do we know? We know the job of any good SPC is to get the train launched without it being a horror show. Get the train learning and gradually recede into the background and let the leadership of the train take it forward. And it's, if your first bit is to go, start it well, your second job is to go make yourself redundant by setting the train leaders, whether they're RTEs or line managers or product managers or scrum masters or product owners, up for success so they can really take the ball forward. And we've got caught up in stories we love to tell. So we'll go a little bit more briefly on this one. But let's flip it around. Let's go to Stefan. You're in zoom out mode again. What are the tricks to making yourself redundant and setting the train people up for success?
One thing I learned is to ask the right question when I have the triad of POs, PMs, RTs, architects, those who guide the art towards the value creation. And one of the common ground for me is a solution roadmap, the PI roadmap, right? If you are in sessions, one of my first questions is, where's the common ground? Where's the roadmap? It fosters collaboration. It fosters a holistic view. It fosters thinking in options, not becoming, oh, that's the feature we should have. No, there's many ways to get to Rome, right? And also detecting missing personal capabilities as an art role or missing capabilities on the art and on the teams. And if I would say one secret sauce, it's roadmaps. I love roadmaps because it creates the outside in view and you are not drowning in features and stories and technical issues because you still have the outside in view.
Nico, I'm seeing you look very thoughtful there. It feels like I just need to throw to you.
It just did many things in my brain. So let's take the picture of a magician's magic. There has to be something there that you can do a magic show. You're not God and you cannot do things appear. It has to be there. What has to be there? It's something only leadership management can offer you. So you need the ground to work. And if this ground isn't there, I can do as many tricks I want. They will just fail. So what I have to do as an SPC, realize I'm not important. It's one thing. And the other thing is find management, find leadership who are willing and want to and see the pain, why they need this movement. And they should create a field where those people can grow. And then you can play a gardener, a magician, or whatever, and help these people find their way. And I think this is the only chance you have an SPC to get to be redundant, because then they can grow by themselves. But if you don't have this field and only stones, then you will be there and find and there and running around. You will have no impact. The only chance you have an impact as an SPC or as a coach is that management is there, sees the need, and creates this ground. You're just a magician, not God.
Ali, where are you going to take us? Abracadabra.
No, I think for making yourself redundant, what I figured out is, just as an SPC, you just need to spend the time. Spend the time, be curious, and circle back on the question, are we fixing sort of the issues that we are intended to fix? What Stefan mentioned is that sort of all the way in the beginning, before value stream identification, or actually as sort of one of the first steps of the value stream identification, you would like to understand what kind of issues are we solving, or what are we organizing for? So being able to circle back with a team of product owners, with a team of scrum masters on that same topic, are we indeed, Maybe if the issue was retention, people leaving. Are we indeed working in an environment right now with this new way of working in which people are still leaving? Or isn't that the case anymore? Are people more happy? Or um, are we actually able to collaborate and plan together way better compared to before? It's sort of the beauty of inspection and adaptation. It materialized in my head way too late with the sort of the beauty is in its simplicity. Inspection and adaptation. If you organize for inspection adaptation, then that becomes routine. Whenever that is routine, as an SPC, you can safely step back. And it's I think the same with moving away from the mechanical part of a train. One of the sort of the I'll dive into the next question that we had, which was sort of the risk of a train becoming a feature factory. I think if you inspect with your Scrum Masters whether it is indeed becoming a feature factory, there's no innovation, people are not smiling, there's no fun, it's just all mechanical zombie Scrum type of stuff. We need to do something about it, because before you know it, people leave. It's going to be, you're going to fail, and everything's going to blame it on this new way of working.
Yeah, let me pick up that thread, Ali. I really think, and I'm repeating myself, I'm using this analogy of the bowling alley, right? Asking the teams, do you see the pins? And if you see the pins, if you see the purpose, you know how to throw the ball. Because otherwise you're throwing features and stories as output toward the target. You hear it, but you don't see it. And that's a detachment from creating value that really creates outcome and an impact on a enterprise level, on an organizational level.
So I can see Nico changing his mind about what he was going to say.
Yeah.
Speak it, don't type it, my friend.
Usually when you hire me, I love to irritate people and just to say things other people don't say. And if you go to Feature Factory, I will first ask, why is it a bad thing? Because everybody say, yeah, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing. You will have to go away for it. And I will ask first, why it's a bad thing? And then count to 8 and see what answers will come. Usually there is a bad thing, but I stand there and say, it's not a bad thing. Explain me please why. And then find a reason why to change. Find the incentive. Find where's the way you want to go. Maybe it's okay to be a feature factory because we need that now at the moment. We need this feature factory to be faster as a competitor, and then later we will need more innovation. But I think as a coach, you should, as an external coach, you should always ask the stupid questions nobody has the guts to ask. Because you're external, they will not throw you away or cancel your contract. You can play stupid as an external, and I love playing stupid.
All right, so closing out the feature factories, if you're not familiar with the concept, because SAFe certainly doesn't talk about feature factories. The idea is based on a blog written by John Cutler a number of years ago now, which was called 12 Signs You're Working in a Feature Factory. And it's actually, if you look in the world of people who critique SAFe, a really common accusation is that SAFe is creating feature factories. And I'm here to tell you, I've worked with so many trains that look nothing like a feature factory. But quite often, if I'm called in to look at an art that's in motion and struggling, I love using it as a diagnostic. Because if you kind of hold up which of these signs do we recognize in ourselves in a mirror, it can create a really interesting and challenging conversation. Because often what I find is, back to where this began, we've lost sight of the fact that it's people. and you want people excited about the difference they're making at work. So just before we go and have our usual argument over measure and grow, just one sentence to sum up your views on this. Ali, you had the ball. Why don't we go to you? What's your just one sentence in closing on it?
It is actually a sentence that has one comma in it. So the sentence is, ensure your teams can be stable, so can be stable, and then comma, and can own their part of the solution as end-to-end as possible. Full stop.
Beautiful.
I really like that, Ali. And let me add to that one. Team of Teams is not a target state, comma or period, but rather an opportunity for value creation and delivery. And the world moves on. We have to adapt.
All right, Nico, is there a comma in yours or?
Of course, when I read all the states, I have to choose something different because otherwise it will be boring. I took the Greek perspective or the Southern European perspective and saying arts are like clans, like villages, more like clans. Mafia, by the way, is also a clan, but let's move this away. So they work together for good or bad to achieve a common goal. They are really a clan, a family of families.
Or a mafia organization.
Yeah.
All right. So mine is you'll get it wrong in the beginning, and that's okay. But if your art still looks the same after a year, you haven't been living the principles.
That's 2 sentences, Mark.
There was, oh, I should have added a comma or a dash and articulated it. Woo, I've been caught out.
But we have now cool new statements for the next safe trainings. Just our pictures and these quotes. I love them all.
Yeah, I'll give you a story during the retro on that front. Okay, so on to measure and grow. And weirdly enough, we're very aligned here, except for Nico, who drew all kinds of arrows and squiggly things. And I don't know whether that was like he was trying to vote for 4 measure and go metrics at once or what.
No.
Tell us more, Nico, your favorite measure and grow and why.
Yeah. I was the first on this board, on this section, and so I tried to show you where my thought went. So first I was on the same place as you. So you all chosen the art is organized to optimize the value delivery. So I thought, oh, there it is. I can't stop reading. And then while reading, I thought, okay, continuous integration is really important. But at the end, I stopped with you need trust. You need this kind of clan experience. For that, I must be able to rely on others. So I can only promise something as an art. I only can deliver this value if there's trust. And the closest thing to trust was this rely thing. And that's why I've chosen our team can rely on the other teams to deliver work on which we are dependent. So that was my thinking.
Nice. It feels like maybe I wasn't the only one who wanted more human-centric measures here.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan, I cut you off.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but I think Nico is right? The ultimate responsibility for fitness of use is with the business owners. But to do so, we need data, we need the teams to come up with ideas as well. But for me, still, the ultimate purpose is delivering value in the form of output. But you need to know that if you throw your ball on the alley, it hits the pins. And if you don't see the pins, you're not creating value. It's just churning out output. So value, the value discussion for me is really central.
Which obviously is why you voted for the arts organised to optimise value delivery, Stefan. Ali, what led you there?
Well, if you throw the bowling ball on the alley, then you get a flat. It's probably going to get a bloody mess. So I chose the exact same thing like you, Mark, and like Stefan, which is so if you're an SPC, you want to figure out whether your train is growing and improving. then I would also try to measure the its ability, the train's ability to deliver value. And I think I always have an issue with the word value delivery or delivering value, because what is value? That's the eternal discussion. But I think that should be part of using this metric. It's quantifying or defining what value means in the context of the train. And then trying to measure that probably is going to be sort of okay, I see that Nico is throwing around money.
Value. I'm
That's
throwing
also
around
value.
value.
Oh, okay. You're delivering value. So Nico is delivering cold hard cash. Um, but out of everything, I would try to measure that.
Beautiful. So trust between teams, know the value you're delivering, and be continuously optimizing the way you're organized to get more of it. And wouldn't it be nice if there was another metric in there that said, and people love coming to work?
Exactly.
Or having fun or something like that.
Alrighty. There we go. We managed to claw a bit of time back. So that brings the formal part of the episode to a close. And let's actually, we should do a check-in next week. Next week. What are we talking about next week?
Going to be talking about agile product delivery, core competency with the specific dimension develop on cadence, release on demand.
Which will be an interesting one, starting probably with an argument about why that dimension is in the product competency.
Oh, yes.
Forewarning, I expect to be a little bit naughty next week. So
Nice.
Without further
We've
ado,
got some ideas, right?
let's head into Retro Lounge. And probably particularly this was pretty big iteration based on the discussion we had about the way we were going to handle stories last week. Let's see what happened. And those who are hanging about, I'm going to share the screen so you can watch us playing in Miro while we're being silent, writing post-its.
Very good, very good.
Oh, great. I was in the wrong board. Great.
I think I'm in the right board. I am in the right board.
You're doing the retrospective for
frame.
next week.
Yeah, I always ahead of my
So
time. That's
you're looking
my
ahead.
burden.
Yeah, exactly. Nico and his crystal ball. You're hard on yourself, Mark.
That's how you get better.
Oh,
The old should have used the lock button.
Yep.
Let me do that. Can
We
I?
can't. We can't.
Oh no, we're moving everything now.
You're not the board owner.
I'm gonna
Okay.
solve that problem. I get lazy with this because Stefan's just like all over it every week. It's like everything's
I'm
gonna
sorry.
be perfect on the Miro because Stefan's the king.
And I was lazy this week. Really, didn't have that much time. So yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Me too.
Me too.
I need to write one more. I just thought of. Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just going to acknowledge the stop doing. I had sound play up on me 2 days ago. Nothing to do with OBS. I got off a Zoom call. I started a Discord conversation. My sound was dead. I rebooted and life was good. And I should have stopped at that point and said, is everything still working? As opposed to 20 minutes before we're meant to go live. Oh my goodness, it's not working. Reboots don't fix it. Like I got everything set up. No, the sound's not working. I had to do a full reboot. So I started a little bit flustered tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but no
Nah.
worries, Mark.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Zoom. I had that a few times with MS Teams, all fine. As soon as I use Zoom, going back to MS Teams context, people have problems either listening to me or I have problems. It's obviously with Zoom. There must be an issue. It even overrides Windows settings, stuff like that, and one has to be careful about that one.
So Mark, I like how hard are you with yourself, but for us it was nothing. It was just waiting a little bit. Was everything okay? I have the same thing with when it happens to me, I'm always panicking and oh gosh, I'm hindering the others. But if you are on the other side, it's just okay. It's Saturday. We are not running away or going to jail if we are too late because the car is too late. I know this feeling, but you don't have to have it from my side at least, or from our side.
I think it's more for me, and I coach this a lot when I'm coaching people about facilitation. Be early, be prepped, so that you can be calm for 5 or 10 minutes before it starts, so you're really present at the moment it starts, as opposed to panic resolved, hit go, and the beginning moment for you is different because of that. So lucky I've got my Sammy tech support crew.
Nice, and works very well.
All right, let's talk about keep doing. Take us away.
Yes. I think the matrix that we've introduced since last episode works
Yes.
well. I found it also very useful to sort of compartmentalize my thoughts into shorter stories, even though I'm still very bad at telling short stories. But but the matrix works. It's nice. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I enjoyed the change.
Plus one.
I think I also found prepping that knowing we'd made that switch let me think in a much more diverse way about the triggers. Because I literally went, okay, there's 4 conversations I want to start, and I'm sure we've all got stories for them. And actually, I went, there's 10 conversations I want to start. I've got to pick 4, but I'm a bit scared of what Nico's going to do when we give him those triggers, but
you should.
Magic. Don't prep too much. He will change the game anyway.
Yeah, so during sleep from Friday to Saturday, oh, I have a new trigger.
Yeah.
If your CICD
You have too many dreams.
if your CI/CD pipeline was an insect, what would it be?
No.
Okay.
It has to fit to the competency. So it looks
Okay.
fun, but it's a lot of working. So it was really the idea of zoo and animals and what is more important. So it had a meaning in the background. It was just a stupid last time, just a stupid idea. It had a meaning. Maybe I will find one next time too.
Cool.
All right. So a continuing thread of
Yeah.
loving flowing from person to person instead of channeling through the facilitator.
Mhm.
Like the more every week we're mindful of it. It was interesting for me. It was so I haven't facilitated for a few episodes, and I started off, and I think this was probably a little bit of the started panicked. I started off on the natural. I'm just going to cue things from person to person, and then I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, I'm leaving no space.
Oh,
No, we didn't
Yeah,
notice that.
but in this episode, I think, Mark, the different episodes have different constraints, different context. Sometimes it's more open space for us. Sometimes it needs a bit of more guidance to really hit the nail, right? And I think we did it today, moving away from this mechanical process of designing towards what's really the essence of designing teams of agile teams. And by the way, I learned again a lot. That's my fun part. So that's
and I
why I'm
think
here
because we're
anyway.
And I think because we're a team, we now also realize more stuff,
Yeah.
how we work, where we can interrupt, etc. Today it felt on flow, and it felt in flow, time in zone, no, and it felt somehow we rehearsed it 5 times. It felt like one piece and not many parts coming together. And I hope this continues. It was just a lucky punch.
I certainly know for me, I'm starting to see the body language. Like I find it takes ages to learn body language over a camera.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see the body language cues, Nico in particular, right? It's so obvious when something's just happened in his head.
Yeah.
An open book. That's good. I
Yeah.
like that. One can read.
I love this too because usually nobody just took out my heart and ripped it apart. So I love being an open book if it's possible. Until now, nobody disappointed me in misusing this openness. And in this round, I'm sure you never will.
All right, so over to start doing outlook for the next episode.
Yeah.
I think that's a great cue, right? I've stumbled the last 2 weeks going, oh my goodness, what is the next episode? I think just doing a little prep frame there to go. Next episode, it'll be X as just a 30-second outtake. And I reckon probably as whoever's hosting or moderating, let me pick your language, whoever's moderating, maybe they do the what's next week as the last thing before the throwback to me for the closing sequence.
So in the backlog, it's Stefan with developer on Cadence Release on Demand.
Yeah.
And the next one is missing. Mark, I see for next week you have no green. So are you here next week?
Check mark. Check mark.
Check mark. Thank you. Yeah.
Let me understand why that is. I know we're about to have a bit of an interruption because of Berlin. And I'm still debating whether we're going to try and do a stream in Berlin.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
We could. Yeah, we could. That would be fun.
But then from Berlin as well.
From Berlin on
that's
site.
what,
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
From Berlin, let's have 4 seats in a corner.
So we're all there, right?
Mm.
When are you guys planning to get in?
Sunday.
On the Sunday.
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
Saturday.
same here.
Saturday.
Meet Saturday morning.
And Ali, yours?
Sunday evening-ish.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it'd be kind of challenging to figure that out.
I will I will attend the micro credential workshops. I won't be part of SPC today. I made a
Oh.
remark in the Slack channel.
Yeah. I think by
Oh,
the way,
yeah.
maybe I will write something. I think it's a pity because the idea of SPC Day is that people come together, and now if you
Yes.
tell them decide what is important for your business, I think it's not the best idea because it should be like a class reunion, and the
Yeah.
other one half of the class has to do these credentials. Yeah,
Yes. I
it's
need
a
it.
pity.
I need it for
Yeah,
this year. I want to use it, so
yeah,
I'm forced to do the credentials and skip the
yeah,
SPC today. But anyway, so
yeah.
should we find a spot during the Safe Summit where we can do that?
Look, I'll pack the gear, and we can chat on Discord between now and then.
Sure.
I reckon it'll be really fun. I won't pack much. I'll just pack enough
Cool.
that we can and get my laptop set up so that we can turn
Cool.
on OBS and do something live, and we can figure out when or where.
And let's not forget that Adam has his gear there as well for podcasts.
Yeah, the gear's the easy bit. It's just making sure my laptop's
Okay.
set up to run OBS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without overheating. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
did the
we
easy
stop with
solution to overheating.
we stop with next week, March 23rd. You're available, Mark, or are you away?
Yeah, so next week definitely I'm here.
Okay,
The week after
so I need-
that's Easter, so we'll obviously
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
be doing
Holidays.
it Easter.
And then we need a new calendar. Then I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's safe
we need to
already.
reset a calendar for the other side of the building. I did just want to back in retro mode for a second.
Yep.
I had a temptation for a
Mhm.
new discussion that might be fun, as a slight tweak to the measure and grow thing. Because I don't know about you guys, but every time I look closely at those measure and grows, in trying to pick my favorite, I go, "This is the one I wish was there."
Yeah. The missing one.
Yeah.
and I wondered
Which one is
whether
missing?
I wondered whether it would be an interesting thing, and maybe not for a huge discussion, but for like a 30-second snippet each, to go, if you added one metric that you wish was there, what would it be?
Yeah.
Rather than us.
I like it.
Yeah.
Let's try. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So that's 2 + 1s on our tweaks.
Cool.
Done.
Makes sense.
So
Maybe
there's
maybe the
retro.
next one is perfect. Maybe the next one is perfect, and we don't need it to add something.
That'll be the day.
I can tell you, Nico. No. Something is missing.
There will be peace next week too in the world. Yeah.
I will poke holes as a moderator, if I may.
All right. So that's retro done. Next week organised. Then we know we're 2 weeks off for Berlin.
Yeah.
We'll sort out whether we can do one live from Berlin, because that'd be kind of cool.
Sure.
And if any of you have flexible travel plans, I'll let you know. Eric and I are both getting into Berlin the Thursday before, and we're doing an Airbnb for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Switching over to the hotel the Sunday night, mainly so that we have a living space where we can talk and stick post-its on walls instead of camping in a hotel foyer. So we plan to be in full-on creativity mode, and if you get to Berlin before Sunday, Sunday there's a kind of fellows thingy happening, but if you get to Berlin before Sunday, or well, anytime Saturday really, yell, come join the fun.
I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check whether I can. I'm gonna change flights and that kind of stuff.
I'm tempted, but I have rallies over from New Zealand, so let me see if it works. So
I don't know. Relatives, a full day of shaping agility collaboration.
But if they are from New Zealand, they're Stefan. If they are from New Zealand, they're not yours. You can go.
Exactly, right?
but I'm married, you know?
It's,
Yeah,
it's
There's a
just the outlaws.
I know.
It's called relatives because there's a relation, and the relation has a constraint and some context. So, yep.
I'm
Your
married
family
too. I
might be
know.
watching.
Hey, you're Greek. You're Greek. You know how that works in a clan, right? The clan
Of
has to
course,
say.
yeah. I will never go away if relatives of my wife are here. My wife are here. They just said wives. Was just and that's too much. I've only one. Really, I have
Okay.
only one.
All right, that feels like
Cool.
a good